Hey everybody, this is Perch. Let's get into this mail. It says, why do comic writers not treat comics like good writing? I think some do. But anyway, let's see what this mail has to say. It says, greeting Perch, the third of his name, and alleged sitter offenses. I people don't use that insult to me as much as they used to. It's weird. Anyway, it was always funny. I think people have been trying to figure out a good insult stick. There was Perch drinks. It's like, guilty as charged, son of a bitch. Perch is an alcoholic. I mean, no, but whatever. As long as the beer's coming, you can call me whatever you want. Perch is a fence sitter. It's like, Perch likes to think about things. Perch talks about himself in the third person. Yes, that's true. That's very true. Anyway, back to mail. It says, I hope life in Texas is treating you well and has not driven you to drive like them yet. Goddamn, people in Texas, nobody knows how to drive anything. Anyway, I would argue that the entire Marvel or DC multiverse, all right, is one story with a lot of smaller stories in it. I agree with this logic. C.B. Cebulski agrees with this logic. He said this at a writer's summit once upon a time when they were doing those. Anyway, this is, in my opinion, one of comics' strengths. Why is it then that professional writers keep complaining about continuity and that it is difficult to write their characters? Well, because continuity means you have rules. And sometimes you just want to make a comic without those rules. And it also, I'll give one other very faint, half-assed argument, on their behalf, is that writers are not paid a ton of money. A couple are, but most are not. And so you're not paid much for a comic, and yet you're somehow expected to go in and research all of the continuity of the character you're about to write and go through this and that. And, and there's been a lot of messy continuity and editors haven't always done the best job. And, it's like, it's pain. I fully acknowledge it is a super pain to do a lot of this stuff. And then you're not paid well. And the editors don't seem to be interested in doing much. And, and so I get it. I get why writers are like, you're going to pay me very little. You're not committing to anything. I'm basically doing an 8-page anthology story. And so, yeah, fuck continuity. I get it. I totally get it. It is the job. It's kind of like, you're going to be a statistician. You're like, fuck, math. I hate math. Why do I have to? Math is so dull and boring. Why do I have to learn it? It's like, well, you did pick statistician as your job. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll continue with this mail. It says, having a consistent story is important, and if you don't have one, it just makes the story worse. If a villain is murdering innocents in one book, then portrayed as a rogue with a heart of gold in the next, then it's simply just bad writing if you see it from the overall perspective. On this topic, by the way, a lot of comic writers do not read the other comics, or they read very few comics, and that always surprises me too. I think, to me, comics a labor of love, particularly if you are, basically you're willing to take a low salary to do these comics. You would think that you would, in turn, want to, do the best job you can with this stuff. And you'd read the other comics, but a lot of writers do not read other comics, and that therein also lies a problem. And for that matter, it's like, well, comic books are expensive. Yeah, that is true. Again, you would think that the publishers could give more comps out. Like, I mean, hell, I know this is going to sound crazy, but why wouldn't you, if you're a comic editor, comic publisher, why wouldn't you just send a weekly pack to all your writers on staff? Or not on staff, but, who are doing long-term books, and be like, here's all the comics this week. We're just going to send them all to you in a box. You get them all. I mean, they're the publisher of the comic. That wouldn't be a massive expense. It would be relatively smart. It would be logistically a pain in the ass, no doubt about it, but well, whatever. Anyway, I had a comic writer who lived by one of my shops once, and we traded. You can take all the comics you want every week, not one copy of, all the comics you want. And in turn, you come and do signings every now and then. And it was a deal. It was a deal for me, deal for him. All work. Anyway. And now people know why that, yeah. Once again, people are zeroing in on this identity of Perch. So it's not that hard. I've spelled it out in videos, but whatever. All right. Back to the mail. It says, why is it that people who see themselves as artists actively want to make shittier art? The events are not better, as even while touching the entire line, do they still matter in 2 years? What about 10? What about 1? If it does not matter, is it then not just filler for the overall story? Imagine if Oda just retconned the world nobles into good guys or removed these blue. Then One Piece would be a lot worse. It'd be nonsensical. But what if Oda gave Nami a breast reduction surgery? I mean, that would be a nightmare. She ate like the small fruit, and it was, I mean, God, the world would never recover. That's me, not the male writer. Anyway, why is it that people accept writing worse quality just because they are not the original author? And that's a male. Well, first off, I would love for your thoughts in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and tell a friend, or 5 friends, or 10 friends, or, spam it all over social media. Go to Reddit and tell them how much you love the Perch Show. They'll greet you with open arms over there. I've been crapping on Reddit a lot lately. I don't mean to. It's just funny to me how people get all up in arms. Blue Sky. Go to Blue Sky and praise the Perch Show. Actually, a lot of it, I don't know. I think there's a love-hate relationship with me with a lot of creators. I know I'm she would never admit it, but I think I annoy Gail Simone. But on the other hand, she says nice things and comes on, is very pleasant to me and wishes me well. So, the dynamic. It's very tricky. It's very, very tricky here. Anyway, well, first off, like I said at the very beginning, some writers absolutely do care. They absolutely do. So it's not an all or nothing thing. Some do. I think there are other writers who, and no writer would ever admit this, and I get it. Why you shouldn't admit it, but quite frankly, it's very easy for fans to kind of say, yeah, every writer should put their 150% into a comic, even if they're paid, a too small a salary to live on. But it's just not. That's not realistic. It's not pragmatic. I also think everybody should put in their full into everything and do 110%. But if you are making, basically non-existent wages, you'd be better off at a Starbucks. That's not setting anything up for success. And while you can say, yeah, but they should take pride in their work. Yeah, sure. But, is that realistic? Are you going to get people who are going to research continuity and all the rest getting paid very little? You're just not. So, then the editor should do it, but the editors aren't paid well either. So, I mean, I think, look, this industry has built what we've gotten. And yes, you do absolutely have people who are high passion, who are putting in a lot of work to continuity. I had a great conversation last time I saw him with Philip Kennedy Johnson. This guy is absolutely researching continuity, looking into things, doing his damn best. And I'm sure every now and then he slips, but he's doing his damn best to write comics with continuity, to respect the stuff that comes before it, that's not contradicting anything, that's telling a part of the bigger story. He's trying to do things that matter. But, he's also faced with, shipping mandates, reboots, editorial interference, random events that are going to come out of nowhere. His comic gets relaunched right in the middle of the run. I mean, he doesn't control any of those things, and yet he pushes anyway, and good for him. I'm not a fan of his work, but Al Ewing, I've disliked more than I've liked with Al Ewing, and several of you are big Al Ewing fans. So I don't want to get into a war about the merits of Al Ewing. I think there's people whose work is, objectively bad, and then there's people whose work doesn't work for you, subjectively bad. Al Ewing is that way for me. His stuff doesn't land with me. It lands with tons of people, and he sells copies. So, I really should shut the fuck up. But that's my opinion. And it doesn't have to be yours. I don't want it to be yours, for that matter. But anyway, where was I going with all this? Look, I think in general, comics are meant to be one giant story. That's what they should be. That's what they're best at. That's what makes them beautiful, is when they are that. And comic books are frequently not that. You have part-timers coming in, doing their own thing. You do have people who go into business for themselves who, want like it. Well, I'm going to do the writer who shall remain nameless, because I'm not doing a blind item on him. I don't want to bring that into it. But there was a comic writer whose goal was to make Connor Kent trans, who wanted to reveal that Connor Kent was a trans person, and kind of tried to backdoor it into the comic. That's an example of a writer going into business for themselves. That's somebody who is, they're basically don't, not only do they not respect continuity, they're actively trying to, hijack it for their own purposes because who knows? They ideologically, that's what they want. They think it's funny. They hate Connor Kent, spans. They want to screw with the internet. They want to get attention on Twitter. Who knows? Who effing knows what's going through that person's mind? But, they pull stuff like that. So I think you definitely get those. But you do have a lot of writers who do care. It's just the system is kind of built against them. That's the core problem. The system is not built to basically excite people about comics. It's built, it's frankly the opposite. It's built to, pay people as little as possible, to have as little oversight as possible, to, I mean, just a lot of, frankly, things that make it tough. So that's really the answer there. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. You probably have completely different thoughts. I'm sure you do. Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course. And thanks for listening.